Hi everyone, welcome to the National Assembly of Malaysian Students in America's Career Webinar series featuring Malaysians on OPT. The purpose of this series is to connect current students with Malaysians fresh graduates who are pursuing their optional practical training, OPT, in the specific fields ranging from liberal arts all the way to engineering. This webinar series hopes to enlighten Malaysians by helping them gain more valuable knowledge on pursuing a career here in the United States, as well as knowledge on OPT itself. I'm Muhammad Zulfadli bin Cik Zabri, a sophomore at the Colorado School of Mines, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. Before we begin, allow me to introduce our speaker, Puteri Ayu binti Ahmad Jayaputra, who is currently pursuing her optional practical training, OPT, in the US, working with the Lighthouse Autism Center in Mishawaka, Indiana. It's a unique name, Mishawaka, Indiana. So before I proceed, please excuse my sty on my eye. I just get hurt like 2 weeks ago. So don't focus to my eye, just focus at Puteri's eye. Just kidding. Because she's gonna be the highlight for this session. So yeah, let's proceed. Puteri graduated from the University of Kansas this past May with a bachelor's degree in psychology and applied behavioral science, and is now attached to Lighthouse Autism Center as a registered behavior technician. This Kuala Lumpur resident has an impressive list of past leadership positions during her time as a student in Kansas. She has held a position as the president of her Malaysian Student Association, the president of the International Women Association, and an international student ambassador at the University of Kansas. Apart from that, she is also active in taking part in student body councils outside of her university, serving as the past vice president of the Council for Malaysian Midwest Students, as well as our current director of Program and Strategies Department in our very own National Assembly of Malaysian Students in America, which is known as NAMSA. So then she joined Lighthouse Autism Center because she wanted to choose a career where she is able to continuously make a difference in someone's life, and being a therapist with Lighthouse Autism Center was exactly it. She also admires how well of a strong and structured support system that her company has, especially when it comes down to the supervisor-employee relationship. Therefore, we are honored to have Puteri with us today. Throughout the webinar, I'll be asking our speaker a set of questions, but anyone can feel free to comment any questions you may have in the live chat box below. And remember to include your name and university as well. Now, some of our audience may or may not have heard about the Lighthouse Autism Center. So let's begin with an overview of the company. Hear about it, then from our Malaysian alumni who is currently working there. So Puteri, how would you summarize the Lighthouse Autism Center for everyone?
Hi, first of all, thank you for having me for this webinar series. It's an honor. To summarize Lighthouse Autism Center, basically it's a therapeutic learning teaching center for that provides intensive one-on-one applied behavior analysis therapy for children with autism and other developmental disabilities. So basically applied behavior analysis, or ABA therapy, it just focuses on helping children with their communication skills, their playing skills, self-care, academic skills, and even their motor development skills that helps them to become more independent and successful in the future. And these therapy programs that we implement are designed by qualified behavior analysis, and they're implemented by certified therapists like myself. So that's just an overview of Lighthouse Autism Center.
Okay, nice. That was like a really good overview of your company. Even I'm the engineering-based major, I just feel like I want to go into the psychology field because, yeah, it sounds interesting. So the first question for our set of questions, the first one is, how was the process to apply the job? Because most of the US graduates find it is quite hard to get a job here in the US.
Okay, so in my opinion, when I pursued my undergrad studies here in the US, I already knew I wanted to maximize as much time as I can here. And I already knew that I had in mind that I wanted to do my OPT. And I think that's the first step. If you are considering doing your OPT, I think it's the sooner you make your decision, the easier it will become for you to make other decisions that comes along with it. So I by the end of my second last semester, which was last December, I started to do my job search, and I did my job search from December all the way until this year's June, which is about 6 months. And I know that might to some people that might seem like it's a long time because that's 6 months, that's already half of a year. But just to put it in numbers and give a better idea to everyone, during that 6 month, I have applied to 138 jobs. I only got invited for interviews for 12 of them, and I only got 4 job offers. So now thinking about that, 6 months is not really much, which is why it's really important to start making a decision whether you do want to do your OPT or not. But other than that, the actual process of like applying for a job is like any other. I utilize LinkedIn, I use Indeed.com a lot, Monsters Job, but I think I found most of my luck from Indeed.com. And also, I think I benefited a lot from the career fairs that I had at my university. And I know probably some of you people out there who are psychology students could vouch for me that these career fairs, most of them do not have psychology like job opportunities, let alone like a career fair specifically for your psychology department. But nevertheless, I still went for those because I think it really helped me, like by going there, it helps to shape up that experience to meet recruiters, and it helps you to shape up of how you speak with your recruiters, how you present yourself, shaping your that first impression skill to have when you meet with people. And I think the more I was going to all these stuff, regardless that they didn't have psychology opportunities for me, it really helped me leading up to the actual position that I had. Because then by June, when I started to be called back for like these therapist positions, I was already done and I was already prepared. And those interviews that I went, like those first couple of interviews I went, I would definitely honestly have to say that it didn't go quite as smooth as I wanted it to be. But that last interview, I could tell you I nailed it. And that was all through experience. So yeah, time definitely plays a lot in all of this.
Wow, that was really a good experience. You had like 6 months to apply the job, right? So my quick question is, what is the best time to apply for the job? Because I know you graduated at May, right?
Yes.
At the University of Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
So you think what is the best time for students, which is at the junior year or senior year, to apply for the job, like you did for 6 months?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I would definitely say for those, I know for psychology students specifically, or applied behavioral science students specifically, you have that opportunity to go into research to get experience. And some of those of you who are extra lucky, you can actually take on opportunities to do internships. There's not a lot, but there are some out there if you really look for it. But the ideal time for that would definitely be your junior year. I started to do research in my sophomore year just because I wanted to get a head start of it, and I had more hands-on experience. Where my university is one of the few universities that has applied behavioral science as a major, so I actually got to be a research assistant. Dealing with kids with developmental disabilities in classroom settings and doing research with them. But junior year is that time of the year. Senior year is the actual year that you should actually start applying for jobs. And like I said, if you're graduating like how I graduated in May, if you're also will be graduating in May, this December will be an ideal time to start looking for jobs because some companies want to secure an employee right now. But I am going to tell you that my chances of being called for those interviews were higher, leaning towards after I actually graduated and had my degree in May. And that's when, because knowing that I was going to be more immediately available to actually work, that's when I was being called and then offers were coming in. So senior year.
Wow. Thanks for your answer, Putri. So let's move on to I can say the most lead question. I shouldn't say that, but what I mean is the most lead question is the audiences and me have been waiting for this question. So we have been wondering, why did you apply to work with Lighthouse Autism Center after graduation?
Gotcha. So with those 12 interviews that I went, all of them, I didn't realize that there is just like psychology in itself, there's different branches that you can go out into. It's the same with the therapy. Settings, I didn't realize that there's different types of therapy. There's therapy that they do in home settings where you are actually a therapist one-on-one with a kid that's inside their own house and you will visit them probably 3 times in a week. And there's other therapy centers where it's like a school that the parents drop off their kids 8 a.m., pick them up at 4 p.m. And it's like a school setting. So after going to all these interviews, and just to also give an overview, if you're going to go into therapy with children with developmental disabilities, their interview structure will be in a way that you'll come in, have that normal interview, they ask you questions, you answer them and stuff, and then right after, what I like about my interviews is that I actually got like 15 to 30 minutes of observations and shadowing where I get to actually just watch an actual therapist with an actual kid and they're doing their thing and I get to actually see it. But basically, I really loved Lighthouse Autism Center just because it was a school setting and I just love how much it was very real life. Some of the centers I went, kids were just in cubicles. Like in an office setting, and I didn't think it was fun. It's not real life. And Lighthouse Autism Center, the moment you step in, my first impression of it was like Toy Story 3. If you remember that scene that they went into that little preschool setting, that's how I felt when I went into Lighthouse Autism Center for the first time. They had a playground. The classrooms were very bright colored. They actually had like an actual kitchen where kids can wash dishes and learn all these life skills. And then they had a playground outside. But other than that, I loved how, I guess, I really appreciate the relationship that I have with my supervisor. And I think that's the most crucial thing I was looking for in my career. I wanted something because I know I love feedback. And my supervisor, the Lighthouse Autism Center, your supervisor is on the floor 24/7 with you. You have a walkie. Anytime you have a question or anything, you're going to call your supervisor. She'll come in, she'll help you. So she's always there for me. So I really like that kind of factor where I will always have my supervisor and having that feedback to improve myself. We have meetings every single morning, and I just love the support and how much Lighthouse Autism Center really values you as an employee. But other than that, I like how very well structured their program is when they were giving me an overview during the interview. But basically, that's why you should apply for a lot of jobs because, like for me, I prefer that school setting. Some people might prefer the home-based setting, but the more you know and the more you learn, the more you're going to find out what you really want.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Putri. That was super nice answer. What I think about your job scope is like you have to encounter with a different experience. I mean, every day because you have to encounter with different situations with the kids also, and also you have to encounter with many people like parents, your supervisor, the kids. Like me, I'm petroleum engineering major. If I in my job scope, I just have to be in office. I just have like every day just doing the same stuff, yeah, all day long. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's move on to the third question. Oh, sorry, we have a question from Ifa Suraya. Shout out to her, and she wants to know, how did Putri manage to get a job without a master's?
First of all, hi, Aoife. Thank you for your question. Well, I guess in a way, when you're a psychology student, there's two pathways that you need to consider, whether you want to go ahead and start being in the field and getting as much experience as you want, which is the path that I chose, or if you really want to go get your master's and which will eventually lead you to a path to get your certification or for you to get your doctorate title. So since I decided to just get hands-on, that's why I took on my second major, which is applied behavioral science, which is something that you could look into. It's very, very, very similar to psychology. The only two differences is that applied behavioral science is more of the applied setting, and psychology is very much theoretical based, but they both complement each other and they're both the same thing if you look into it. But basically, applied behavioral science, I was able to just get on with it and do all these therapists, and any psychology major student can also be. But that's the only difference. So it's really your preference if you want to go get your master's or not. But if you are a psychology student out there, I just want you to know there is an option. If you want to get actual job before going for a master's, look into behavioral therapist positions out there. There's a lot.
Thanks for the answer, Puteri. And thank you for asking Ifa Suraya. It was a good question. So let's move on to the next question. What are your primary responsibilities and everyday tasks as a registered behavior technician at Lighthouse Autism Center?
Okay, so let me just give you an overview of how my day goes. I clock in at 8 o'clock and I'm going to be working until 4:30. So 8:30 is when parents drop off their kids. Throughout the whole day, I will be having 4 kids for every 2 hours. So I will not be stuck with the same kid every day, and the kid is also not stuck with the same teacher every day. And it's good for them to generalize different people and to get that kind of exposure, especially with kids with autism. Since we're helping them with their social skills and their communication skills, it's good to have like interaction with multiple people across the day. So yeah, I'll have 4 kids throughout the day. And in that 2 hours, what I will be doing is that my program manager, my supervisor basically, has created this whole packet of programs for me to run with the child. And all these programs are going to be ranging from communication skills, whether if that child is on a level of we're teaching them to sign, then we'll be working throughout those 2 hours on helping them do signs. And if they get it correct, we'll proceed to the next level. It will also range to some children are kind of more higher functioning, and those kids who can communicate and articulate well, we're helping them with their like language development, where we're helping them, if they can't say ball, we're helping them start with ball, like that. Other than that, we are also teaching them functional skills. So if we're in the playroom, and they're taking on all these toys and playing with them, it's an extra learning opportunity where we're teaching them to pick up after themselves and put items back in where they got it from. So it's all these types of programs that we are doing with the kids, and they are also consisting of life skills, since the goal is for them to be independent in their future and be successful in their future. So we also help them with their potty training, toothbrushing, dressing, taking like putting their clothes on, putting their socks on, putting their shoes on independently. So we break them down. Applied behavioral analysis therapy is where we break them down into like smaller segments where it's easier for them to like learn from simple steps, which will lead on to being they are able to do it independently. But that's the stuff that I'm running with the kids every single day. But apart from that, that's the whole skill acquisition part. The other part about ABA therapy is that at the end of the day, these kids with autism have a lot of, some of them might portray self-injurious behaviors where they might bite themselves to get attention, or they might scratch people, or they might grab people, throw objects away. And we are there to also help them. Let's say like children who flap like this, we are replacing them with in more appropriate behaviors by clapping. So we are also helping them reduce all these inappropriate behaviors and then help them increase all these skill acquisition. So that's what we're doing. And that's basically my responsibilities as a registered behavior technician.
Thank you, Puteri. Great experience. they are lucky to have you as their mom. So yeah, move on to the next question. Awesome. We have another question from Daniel. Yeah, Daniel. Regarding Puteri's job applications, were all of the applicants you put in clinical and therapeutic related only?
Hi, Daniel. Thank you for your question. Honestly speaking, I first took on psychology and I wanted to go into industrial organizational psychology, which is all the HR consulting stuff. So back in December until like probably January, Feb, those were kind of the jobs I actually applied for, HR. But then when I took on my second major, applied behavioral science, and I got more into it and I kind of developed this passion and love to help children with autism, that's when I started to only be applying for clinical and therapeutic related jobs only, because by that point of time, after exposure and discovery, I found out that that's where I want to go. That's the path that I want to take. And I have to be honest, those 12 interviews were all from the clinical and therapeutic jobs that I applied for and not for the HR jobs.
Nice. I hope that's answered your question, Daniel. And yeah, Puteri, as we all know that as a students that study abroad, we usually work on campus. On campus. So I believe that you have been working on campus before. Did you find any differences between working on campus and working off campus? Maybe it's kind of tough, or is it easy to get it?
First and foremost, yes, it is two complete different things. I would say that on-campus job, both of them, you still have responsibilities to uphold for sure. But I felt like during like the on-campus jobs that I had back then in my time in my university, one was just being a language and culture liaison, where I'm just helping international students who are in the intensive English program, just building up their grammar, English spoken skills. And another one was basically I was a undergrad office assistant in my department, being the receptionist, answering phone calls, helping professors with their administrative work. But I didn't feel it was just more of a side thing. And then I'm pretty sure most of you can relate with me that even at your job, you can still do your homework. You could put on Netflix on another laptop, still do your work kind of thing. Or if you're working in a cafeteria, you just have that 1 hour where you're just the cashier, or you're just cooking food, or serving others and helping clean up. But then when I shifted to this actual job where it's a full-time from 8 to 5, it took me a while to actually transition and get used to it, because it's like at least for my job, it's gonna, like Buddy, you said if you were to go into your career and field, you will be in the office 24/7. I am 24/7 on my feet with these kids, because we're going here, playroom, a bathroom, back to the classroom, group time. So I'm always constantly moving, and 8 to 5 is a long period of time of just moving with these kids. But it's two complete different things, but nevertheless, both are still jobs. And it's just going to be a different experience that everyone will go through.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Puteri, for the answer. So on a side note, I just want to let the audience know, if you want to ask the question, just put the comments on the live chat box, but don't forget to mention your university that you are representing. Also, yeah, the next question is, we have another interesting question from Daniel. Daniel again. Puteri, would you mind sharing all your past relevant experience and qualifications?
Okay. Hi again, Daniel. Yes. So in terms of psychology, I was involved in research with a professor that was doing orientation and how the society was perceiving it. That was one for psychology. In terms of applied behavioral science, one of the research experience I was on was helping graduate students with their theses as well. One was with kids with autism and food selectivity. And by food selectivity, in simpler words, some kids are kind of picky with what they want to eat. And especially kids that can like display different kinds of behaviors because they don't want to eat a certain thing. We did a research by when we did ABA therapy, are we able to help children who don't like fruits and veggies? And then at the end of it, they do love fruits and veggies. And there's this one kid that wanted to do nothing about green beans at first and was like crying and like hitting his head on the walls. But don't worry, it was a padded room.
Okay.
Research. And didn't want to do anything with it. But then at the end of it, after about 4 months, after doing research and stuff and implementing the therapy, the kid is now asking for green beans at home from his parents. So ABA therapy does work. So that's one of them. Another one is actually going, I also had experience with actually the elder community who are independently living at these independent homes, but they are being watched by therapists. But these are adults that have developmental disabilities, but they're more higher functioning where they can live independently. But our research was more on like how are the therapists able to help them have more of a higher quality of life. So those were some of the past during my university. In terms of qualifications, honestly speaking, the only qualifications I have is just my bachelor's degree in psychology and applied behavioral science. And then after I took on this position with Lighthouse Autism Center, they actually trained me for 2 weeks, and then I had to take an examination, and then it was like a board certified throughout the whole, it's an international recognized certification, and I had to take an exam. It was a very long exam, and then I passed it, and then hence now I have a certification of being a registered behavior technician. So I hope that answers your question, Daniel.
Yeah. Thank you, Puteri, for your really nice experience and qualifications. So, yeah, we're just wondering, how related is your job scope with your psychology and applied behavioral science major? Is it related to each other?
Yes, but my job is definitely more relating to applied behavioral science. It is related to psychology in a way, but like I said earlier, for those of you psychology majors out there, I think you would know when I say that there's different branches, whether you want to go into forensic psychology, clinical psychology, industrial organizational psychology, those kind of branches. I think throughout your junior, senior, you're going to start realizing which path you want to go to. And even if it's child psychology, it would still be related to becoming a behavior therapist. But I was just fortunate enough to find this career path that is definitely 100% related to both of my majors.
Oh, so it's related to each other? That's great. And we also have a question from Adriana, who would like to know if Puteri learned ASL while she was in school, or was it part of her training as a behavior technician?
Gotcha. Hi, Adriana. For those of you out there, if you don't know what ASL is, it's American Sign Language. I actually took ASL. I took 1 semester of ASL back in my university during my senior year. So at that point, it was kind of too late because I didn't think of like taking it earlier. I wish I did. So if you're not in your senior yet, please do take it. So I only have the basics of it, but regardless, because some of these kids, like the kids that I'm working with, they're ranging from 18 months until 5 years old. I have another center that is for the older kids from 5 years old until 18, but I wanted to work with the babies. So like these babies and these little kids, we're not going to teach them like a whole AXL course. We're going to only teach them like the stuff that they need to communicate in their everyday. So I have one child that I'm working with where we are only working with about 20 signs with him. And these are the 20 signs that he's constantly using every day. Like he loves balloons. So I didn't know balloon before, but during your job, you will actually be trained and you will actually be taught on all these sign languages. So like I said, Lighthouse Autism Center, they're very supportive and they make sure that you're ready to go. And if you're not ready to go, then they're there to help you. But yeah, I have one child that only knows 20 sign languages. Hence, now I know 20 new sign languages where we have box, playroom. He likes his chicken nuggets, so chicken. He loves his balloon. He likes to go swing. So see, so I hope that answers your question, Adriana.
Yeah. Does it take a long time to learn the ASL, the sign language?
Not really, but honestly speaking, I think it's easier for you to learn ASL if it's broken down into words, like I just mentioned, like the list just now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more difficult to actually put it into sentences, and that takes more time to learn. But if it's just words wise, then I would say that you can pick it up very easily.
All right. Thank you for your answer. And also, great question from Adriana. So, when I first heard about autism, I'm just wondering what are the symptoms that a child with autism may be experiencing. I believe that some of these children communicate through sign language, and that you may know some sign languages. Yeah, you probably already answered that question. But yeah, what are the symptoms that a child experiencing?
Gotcha. So basically, what is autism? I'll try to put that in simple words, and this is just based on what I know. I'm not that much experience in it, but basically, autism spectrum disorder. It's just a neurological disorder that the symptoms start showing within the first 3 years of a child, and some of the stuff would be like the red flags for it could be like when you're trying to play with them, they're just kind of they don't show any gesture on their face like big smiles or they show joy because probably it's during those first 6 months that they actually have complications with that, and then by 12 months 1 year a typical developing child would actually start babbling and start mama or baba like that. But children with autism, it's their language development is delayed. So another red flag would be like within that 1 year, if there's no babbling or anything, then that could indicate that they might have autism because their communication skills hasn't come out yet per se. And then also just in terms of their social skills, when you're trying to like talk to them, they have a hard time attending, like looking to you in your eye, as well as for them, like to get attention as well. A typical developing child would point to something that they want, or like they would like appropriately ask for your attention or something like by tapping you. But a child with autism, they would probably pull your hand to go grab something for you, or they would, like I've mentioned before, some of them that are more on the more serious kind of spectrum would, behaviors such as biting themselves or like biting others to get their attention. But that's not their intention because that's just how they're learning, and especially with kind of just how it is for them. But that's why ABA therapy important for them, and early is the most crucial thing for them. So that's why, like one of my child I'm working with, he's 18 months years old. 18 months old. He came in, and given how young he is, he came in not knowing how to communicate at all. And because to diagnose him from such a young age, he's been with us for about, I think, 3 months, I believe. But now he's actually using this book. We call it the PECS book, PECS. It's called the Picture Communication System book, whereby the child will pick up like a picture of a cup, give it to you, and then you exchange it for the actual cup. So they learn to like with an actual item, and that's how they're communicating. And just today, he independently opened his book by himself, and I was filling in form. He opened the book by himself. He took out a cup, and then he reached for my hand. He gave it to me, and I was just so shocked that he did that by himself, and I gave him his cup, and he was drinking, and he's only 18 months. So yeah, that's just basically an overview of it.
Thank you. That was really a good experience, but quite challenging when they're starting to bite you and all that stuff. So we have a question from Raihan from NAMSA. Going back to the general OPT applications, optional practical training, was it hard to find companies that sponsor international students? Did they offer right away, or did you have to appeal for the sponsorship? You may answer, Puteri.
The thing is, I knew that when I wanted to do my OPT, I just wanted to do it just for this year. And when I applied for jobs, I wasn't looking into sponsorship per se, because I knew I just wanted to do the OPT for 1 year. So I was just like, basically just, it was more of a broad thing. I was looking for jobs, and I wasn't asking them about future sponsorships whatsoever. So I think probably on my end, it was much easier. And my company itself, the turnover rate is very high. People come and go because in my field, and especially I'm pretty sure you psychology majors can also relate. A lot of people would come work, but then they'll go out because they want to continue doing their master's, or they want to pursue something else because psychology is forever branching. So yeah, just because I can only speak for my experience, in terms of my company, I would have to say I might be the only international student there, but they were welcoming of every applicant that came to them. So yeah.
Yeah, your hard work pays off, Putri, because international students say it's really hard to get a job here because like the companies, like they don't want to pay like high wages for the especially for the visa, because that's the case.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be different if that's the case, that you do want to stay here longer and you do want to go ahead and apply for your H-1B visa. Then that definitely find companies that do sponsor international students so that it could be easier for you on your end. But if not, if you also want to take the path that I'm taking, just that 1 year OPT experience, I would definitely say that any company would be willing to accept you and are just more open to just be more open.
All right, cool. Let's move on to the next question. Have you ever encountered with any stressful situation while doing your job? As we know, working with children with developmental disabilities could be challenging. So how do you handle it?
Like I said, they always keep me on my toes. So every day is a challenge. But when I say every day is a challenge, it's not like a negative way at all. It's in a positive way. Just because these kids, one day they come in, probably the entire day, they're displaying a lot of self-injurious behaviors. But then the next day, they're in a good mood. And whatever you ask them to do, they're doing it. So every day is a different day with different kids. So I don't think it's a challenge. I think it's the more, like, every day I come in, the more experience that I'm gaining from being a therapist for these kids with autism. So I think the only stressful situation that I faced was actually the transitioning that 2 weeks, because for Lighthouse Autism Center, that first day you're actually just shadowing, and you're just shadowing an actual therapist. And then the second day, the actual therapist will be doing 75% of the work, and then I'm doing 25% of the work. The next day I'm doing half, and then eventually by that Friday, I'm doing the whole thing by myself, and the therapist is actually observing me and giving me straight away feedback if I'm doing anything incorrectly or there's a better way of doing it. So I think that was more of a stressful situation. It's not the kids at all, but I have to be honest. Definitely, if you are looking into working with kids with developmental disabilities and autism, get yourself exposed from an early start. Do your research a lot. You need to know what you're getting yourself into, because it does take a lot of patience. And it's just because I've seen people that are just doing it just because. And then if you're not doing the job with the right intentions, of course, then you might see the job as stressful at the end of the day. But I don't, as much as it's tiring that I'm moving constantly 8 to 5, but then at the end of the day, I get to go home with a smile on my face, knowing that I helped them today, like, be a part of their growing process. But yeah, of course, it's challenging, if you want to say challenging, to be working with children with developmental disabilities. But if you're also in their shoes, I think it's more challenging to be them. And that's why, hence, they need the therapist. And then, and that's what you're here for.
That's true. That's true. So yeah, how about the parents? Are they gonna see when? Are they gonna see you while you're doing your job?
Okay. In terms,
If yes, are they satisfied with you what you are doing?
Oh, gotcha. So parents have more of a direct communication with my supervisor, and this is just part of the ethics to keep up with professionalism and such. We only see the parents when they drop off, we get the kid, and then when the parents pick up. But Lighthouse Autism Center, like the program managers, the supervisors, they will be having monthly parent meetings with these parents to discuss for the past month, what are the programs that we've been working with your child and how far have they progressed? And in terms of, let's say, children who display biting behaviors, since we are recording every single behavior, every single day, through intervals and stuff, we actually get to see data. And that's another cool thing about ABA therapy. It's all evidence-based and it's all shown in graphs and data. So we get to actually see like a child. I remember during a meeting, my supervisor showed us a graph of a child who used to bite themselves. But then over 6 months, like from here, it went down to here. And it's just amazing to actually see it in a graph. But the parents, but it's during these meetings that shares with us what the parents are saying. And I think it was only 2 weeks ago that a parent emailed our supervisor. A child, he can't communicate well, and he's one of those children that are using sign language. But he was at home and he loves his letters, little letters. He loves watching Nickelodeon, and somehow this kid was able to actually spell out the word Nick, N-I-C-K. He was trying to spell out Nickelodeon, had a dot, had a J, and an R. And then his mom took a picture of it and shared it with our supervisor, and she shared it with us. And it was just so mind-blowing that this child, who's only 3, that has autism, cannot communicate well, and is only using those 20 sign languages. He is able to actually like spell that out. And these kids are actually just as smart as a typical developing kid. So that's one cool thing about them.
Wow, that was so lovely, Puteri. It's a lovely story. And thank you for answering that question. We still have another one question from the audience. Ifa would like to know, when did you apply for your OPT exactly, Puteri?
Gotcha. That's a great question, Ifa. Back to what I said earlier, that the sooner you make your decision to do your OPT, the easier it will be for your process, because once you do decide on doing your OPT, you have to start thinking about your start date. And then let's say you want to start, for me, I graduated 15th of May of this year, and I wanted to start on July 2nd because I wanted to have some time after graduation to do more interviews and then hopefully get job offers. And then from there, since I knew I wanted to move to another state, I wanted to give myself also time to be moving from one state to another state and settling in and then starting my job. So it's given that I knew I wanted to do July 2nd, from there you would minus around, I believe it's 60 days or 3 months. And then that's when you can apply for your OPT. But the reason why I know all about these stuff is because I have such a great relationship with my advisors at the International Student Office, and I would highly recommend you to, I'm pretty sure your university has, can set up those kind of appointments where you can talk to them, and they're going to be the ones helping you to decide on your start date, and they're the ones that are going to, like back in the University of Kansas, they gave me a whole checklist of what to do and what date do I need to do it. So I had those resources, and I was just fortunate enough that my process of applying for OPT was very smooth. Alhamdulillah for that. But yeah, I applied for OPT in March, and then I got it in sometime in June.
Oh, great. I just know about that. The international office can help us seek the OPT for us. I just know about that. Also, the next question. So far, what has been the best experience that you have encountered with your job? You can share more than one if you want.
Oh, man, I think I've shared a lot so far. Now I have to find the best. I have to find a different one. I think it's still with the same, the best one. These kids, there's going to be two paths for them. Either they age up until 6 and they need to be moved to the older center, or they are able to like decrease their behaviors and increase all their skill acts to a point that we can officially say that they're independent and they get to graduate from Lighthouse Autism Center. So just as how therapists are coming and going, so are these kids. They come and go. But I think it was just as far as I've been here for about 6 months with my company. I have one student that graduated from Lighthouse Autism Center. It was a bittersweet moment. And I had 2 kids that moved to the older kids center. But I think it was satisfying for me to actually, during the 6 months, I had that 18-month-old baby that came in. So I get to be with them from the start and actually see them progress. Because when I started, I had about 7 children in my team. Some of them are very they're able to during lunch, they're able to open their book, find a pizza roll picture, and then put at the front, I want pizza roll, and give it to you and say, I want pizza roll. But I'm just amazed. I'm like, wow, they're so smart. But then when I hear from another therapist, like, oh, you should have seen him from last year. He didn't know how to do it at all. So then I guess it's different because I wasn't there. But then now, because I'm with that 18-month baby, that first time when he actually pulled me, the first time that he actually pulled me was only 2 months after he had that book. We were in the playroom. And then at that point, we haven't taught him to really exchange pictures yet. We just taught him to just carry the book because that's their voice. And we were in the playroom, and then he loves the swing, but suddenly he just took the picture of the swing and then he handed it to me, and I screamed so loud that I think the whole center heard me. I was so excited that was the first time, and it was with me, that that child was able to actually understand the concept of communicating through those pictures. And I just picked him up, put him on the swing, and I was so excited, and everyone saw how I was so excited. But I think that was the best experience because I got to be with that child from the start, where he came in, didn't know how to communicate. He was just a baby, and then now he's able to tell me that he wants a drink.
Thank you, Puteri. That was really awesome. That experience cannot be having by normal people like us. You have to grab the opportunity. So here is, hold on. Okay, here is another question from Adrena. If you don't mind sharing, Puteri, what are your plans after this OPT? Are you going back to Malaysia, and do you plan to continue being a therapist for children with disabilities?
That's a great question, Adriana. It was only recently that I just decided to go back home after OPT. So I'll be done my OPT in July, so I'll be going home. But given that I already made that decision, I did my research, and who knew that there are these types of therapeutic centers back in Malaysia. And I found one that I'm very, very, very much interested in. It's called the Early Autism Project in Malaysia, and it's in Kuala Lumpur. And they're basically doing the same things. I was checking out their website. They're doing the same stuff. They're having these one-on-one therapy with kids with developmental disabilities. When I was following their Instagram, they just took the kids to Aquaria, KLCC, and it was so nice, seeing how these kids with their communication skills, and then they actually get to implement it outside and go to an aquarium. So back to Malaysia, and I am planning to continue being a therapist because my long-term goal is to eventually do my master's, be taking the exam to become a board-certified behavior analysis, where at that point in time, inshallah, I will be able to accept clients, accept kids, and I get to create those kind of programs for them, and I get to actually run a center on my own. So that's my long-term goal.
Thank you very much, Puteri. for the great answer. And thank you also, Adriana, for the great questions. So we have a couple more questions left. So we will be extending this webinar until 10 p.m. for Puteri to answer the questions from the audience. Stick around for another 50 minutes. So to recap, we have a question from Faris. He would like to know how hard is it to land interviews and jobs for your field? What do companies really looking for in applicants?
That's a great question. So, hello, Paris. Thank you for your question. How hard is it? I think it's more of the whole process of actually finding the job that's actually hard, because you always have to keep tabs of your whole process of finding jobs. And like I said, that whole 6 months, you're trying to juggle doing assignments, taking your finals, doing homework, having these other extracurricular activities, and at the same time applying for jobs. But back then, I always had a goal, like every day I would try, like at night, just apply for 2 jobs. So that's how I accumulated up to 138 eventually. But I think just taking every opportunity that you can seek and just taking on, because you never know what your residency is going to be at. But specifically for my field, I think if you're like solely into psychology, I know it's going to be hard because there's no career fairs. But that's why I said, if you get that experience to do research and do internships, then it will be slightly easier for you. But in terms of applied behavioral science, it's way, way, way much more easier. And with a psychology background, it's going to be easy for you, trust me. Because like for my company, as long as you have a background with kids with developmental disabilities, or you have a background in psychology, you have a background even in education, they are going to recruit you, because in applied behavioral science, they believe in the fact that people are able to learn and you're able to train them. So for that, I guess what they're looking for in applicants in general is just the positive, I guess in terms specifically for my position, having that positive attitude is definitely a key, because like Poli, one of your questions, it was a good question about, having it being challenging to be working with these kids, because you need a lot of patience. And that's why I said you need to have the right mindset to get into this kind of jobs. Other than that, definitely professionalism, but that goes throughout any field, honestly speaking. And I guess they're able to see in your interview if you really have that kind of passion. And that's why at the end of the day, I knew wherever I'm going to end up at, I want to make sure that it's something that I really want to do. And I really love doing it, because when you pick a job, that's going to probably be your job for the rest of your life. So you better pick something that's going to make you happy. But that's it. And I think I would say that companies are just seeing if you're just being yourself, honestly.
Thank you, Puteri. You just boost up our spirit to get a job here, because I believe that, for me, I just feel down to get a job in the US, because it's really intense and tough, because they just look for the citizens to get a job for that company. So what I heard about that is I just want to share about the senior at the Penn State University. University of Pennsylvania. His name is Adnan Zikri. Yeah, he received the Rhodes Scholarship from the US. Be offered to pursue his study to University of Oxford. So I see that this kind of thing that can make he step out from the other students. So he has the great chance for the companies to hire him as a worker. So with your advice, it just boosts up our spirit to get a job here. So let's move on to the next question. Okay, so I think we are at the last question. Do you have any beneficial advices for all the students who wish to work with psychology-based companies, or even just working here in the States?
Well, given that this is a career webinar on OPT, I think my biggest piece of advice that I really, 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 really want to stress to all of those of you guys who are considering it, like I said, you need to make your decision quick. And if you are watching this video, then that's good. You're going to get some more information about it. But I highly recommend, if you're considering, even just considering, no matter how much percentage you're considering, if you're considering doing your OPT, make your decision by at least the end of your second last semester, before your actual last semester. And the reason I'm saying this is because there will be, right after that decision, there's going to be more chains of other big decisions that you need to make afterwards. So for example, if you do decide to do your OPT, you need to start considering your start date. And then from your start date, only then you're able to know what time frame of that 3 months prior that you're able to send in your application. And this is going to be a $400 investment. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And even that in itself is also a decision whether you want to invest $400, because not to say it's a 50-50 take, not to say it's a 50-50 chance of getting it. I would say that most of the people that I know who did apply for OPT, you will get it. There may be some small percentages of not getting the OPT, but that will be a different story. But most of the people that I know who are applying for it are going to get it. It's just in terms of, just also be aware that if you apply for a certain start date, you may not necessarily get that actual start date. So you have to be playing with time. Like, it's a lot of playing with time. But apart from that, you also need to consider whether you want to be moving to a whole new state, or if you want to be staying nearby your campus, because then the decisions by then you're going to make is whether, oh, do I need to find a new apartment at a new state? How am I going to do that? Or do I need to renew my lease at my current apartment because I'm deciding to stay here? But yeah, those are all the lot of decisions that you have to make. But I did find it so helpful to be talking to my past seniors who are going through OPT. Back then when I was a senior and I was just talking to my Malaysians who are currently under OPT, but I found it so helpful that if you talk to as much as people as you can who have gone through this, see what they did in their journey, because everyone has their own different ways of doing it. And I'm pretty sure you are also going to have your own different way of doing it. But because the more you learn from others, the more you're also going to learn about yourself and what you want to do it and how you want to do it. So that's just my big take on this, stressing on OPT. But for psychology-based students out there, I understand how hard it is going through those 4 years and be like, oh, I was always jealous at those career fairs. It was mostly inclined to more business, engineering students, and there weren't really a lot for liberal arts. There weren't a lot of opportunities, but I just want to reassure you, there are opportunities out there. You just need to seek it. And I hope through this webinar, you got to learn about applied behavioral science. You got to learn about ABA therapy. You got to learn about these kinds of positions, being behavioral therapists with kids with autism. And no matter from what background you're from, ABA is very welcoming. That's just to let you know. So don't lose hope. You can do it. As long as you have the heart to do it, you can do it. Trust me.
Thanks for the fantastic motivation and advices, Putri. So we have one last question from Adriana. Oh, I like this audience because she always asks an intellectual question. Thank you, Adriana. She says that I didn't know applied behavioral science was a field for an undergrad. It's only offered in graduate schools here at Rutgers University. Do you think there might be a chance to be a therapist just like you with just a major in psychology?
I also want to say thank you, Adriana, for all your intellectual questions. I really love your questions, and also from everyone else. My short answer is yes, 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 yes. I could not say enough how many people that I know from my company who have background in being a pastor. A lot of them are from psychology. A small number are from education, and then I would say only a few that you can count by your fingers are actually from applied behavioral science, because like I said, there's not a lot of schools that offer applied behavioral science as an undergrad. I was just fortunate enough that the University of Kansas is just one of the few that has it, so I got that early exposure. But regardless, like I said, psychology and applied behavioral science, like complement one another. They're very similar to each other. They have the same concept, because for psychology students, I am pretty sure you have taken those courses where you're learning about developmental disabilities and other types of neurological disorders or mental disorders. So to answer your question, Andrea, yes. So don't be afraid to take on an opportunity. At my company, I have about 5 students who are interning. Some of them are doing psychology, some of them are doing nursing, but they're interning. So these are some of the opportunities that you can take on. You can actually find these centers and just volunteer your time and do an internship with them. You might not be paid, but that's the typical go-to for internships here in the US, unfortunately. But given that experience, and like I said, if you use your junior year up to the most that you can and do internships, then it will better prepare you for your senior year and then actually finding a career.
Thank you so much, Puteri. And for Adriana, yeah, just go for it. So that's all the time we have for today's webinar. Is there any question anymore from the audience? If not, I think, yeah, thank you so much for your time, Puteri. I'm sure that everyone who had just watched this webinar now has a better understanding of the Lighthouse Autism Center, as well as the working field of psychology as a Malaysian student here on OPT. If you have any further questions, we will be sharing Puteri's email through our Facebook group, so feel free to get in touch with her. Plus, if you want to know more about the Lighthouse Autism Center, you can go check out their website at lighthouseautismcenter.com, or you can see at the live chat box there, I think. Also, Puteri, do you have anything else to add before we end?
Actually, yes, I do. For you upcoming graduates out there, psychology or not even psychology, who are for sure, if you want to learn, if you want to know more, just again, feel free to just email me. But also, I just want to let you know that my company is always recruiting. So if you are interested and you want to learn more, feel free to let me know. You could either go onto their website. There's going to be a button about careers where you can just apply for it, send your resume, or if you want to reach out to me, I can give you the email address straight away for the recruiter themselves, because we're always, like I said, we're always recruiting. So hopefully, inshallah, maybe you have Rezeki with my company as well. I've had a friend that I helped. She didn't. She's actually also working as a behavior therapist. She's a psychology student as well. She's working as a behavior therapist in another company in Indiana, but it was just only after a conversation with her about my company, about what I'm doing, that she got interested. And then now she's a behavior therapist too. So that's so exciting. So yeah, if you are looking for a job opportunity, just let me know.
Thank you so much, Puteri, for the information. So please email us or leave comments on what you thought of this webinar, so that we'll be able to organize an even better one next time. The link to the feedback form is posted in the link in the video description below. In the video description below. We would really appreciate if you could spend a minute or two to fill it in. Thank you and have a great weekend, and have a great night. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.